All right. Hello, everybody. We are here today for the Invisible Advantage Masterclass. And this class I'm really excited to be able to do because I've been working with women who are scaling their businesses, women who are growing their wealth to the next level. And there's always this internal tension between the strategy working or not working and the internal just like fuckery that comes with scaling your business. And I just want to point out as we get into that, scaling a business and growing a business to be the exact lifestyle, we're not programmed for that. And it brings up so much shit as you get into this. Like, brings up old feelings and old programmings and old stories, and it's just hard to do. So I'm going to go over in this masterclass, there's three main reasons why women get stuck in the financial plateau when they're trying to grow and scale their businesses. And I would just want to give credence to all of those things because it's so easy to internalize, oh, something's wrong with me, or I have a problem and things aren't working out the way that we want to. So I just want to go over those three reasons. And then I'm going to talk to you about what it actually takes to grow and hold all of that massive success. And so the way that this is going to go, so I'm going to just tell you guys right up front, what I'm offering on this call today is a business building session with me. And so I have a mastermind offer that's a hybrid between coaching and the group mastermind type thing. And it's straight fucking magic for anybody who's growing and scaling. And the way that my sales process goes into that is we'll do a one-on-one session first. If this resonates with you and you want to work with me, in that call, we'll spend about an hour, 75 minutes together. We'll make a plan on your business strategy. And then what I will do on that call is listen very closely to what's going on for you and your mindset and your emotional range and all of the things that we're going to get all the way deep into today. So that way you can come away with a strategy that works for your business and to build a life that you want. And then more or less a roadmap in terms of personal development and what you need to do to become the woman who can hold all that. So that strategy session is available on this call. It's $999. There will be a link in the show notes for this. And so anyways, I just wanted to put that out there because as we get into this work, you can make your decision and we'll go from there. All right. So there's three main reasons why women get stuck when it comes to scaling their business. Now, the first is really around the way that our culture and society talks about success, and all of the frameworks around success were basically written for men, and with the implication that both of these men had wives at home that were doing all of the child rearing and the laundry and doing all the things. And so most of the success books assume a level of time and energy that women simply just really don't have, right? And we can get so far using the Napoleon Hill structure or Stephen Covey or Grant Cardone, like all these big names in the success. Like we can carry that so far, but somewhere between, depends on your business model, but somewhere between the 100,000 and 500,000 women get stuck. And it's basically because our bodies are different. We run on a 28-day cycle, men work on a 24-hour cycle. We have different levels of responsibility. We have different energy levels than men. And so all of those structures that are like push, go, 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 suck it up, buttercup, rub some dirt on it. It doesn't work when you're the person who has to mother the children, water the plants, cook the dinners. All of that work is also work that really contributes to the beautiful life that we want. And so working all of the time and just being stressed, it's just not the flex, right? If you have somebody at home taking care of everything and you could dedicate all of your waking hours to work, great, more power to you. But for most of us, that doesn't work. And so we have to come up with different ways of looking at things because just push, grind, it leaves women burning out in that income range or somewhere in our mid-40s. Our bodies just won't do that level of work anymore. And it's interesting because I've been working with women for a long time. And what I realize is the fuckery that comes from this is because it gets internalized that like, something's wrong with me. I should be more productive. I'm lazy. I procrastinate. And it's like, listen, lady, you're following a model for success that is made for a whole different ass kind of human. It's a whole different ass kind of life. And so I just want to put that out there because what we really need to do is look at success from the standpoint of this business I'm building to fund my life, to serve people. And we're going to serve people. We're going to take good care of our audience list, customers, clients, however we put it. But also we need to have the funds to be able to go on nice vacations and the funds to be able to do XYZ. So That masculine model of success doesn't really work for women at scale. It will work up to a certain point, but then after that, you get stuck in it. All right. The second thing is a little nod to the first thing, which is an over focus on the masculine sides of business. So this is going to be the strategy and the mindset, right? So oftentimes when women are scaling, they will be obsessed with their strategies. They'll be tweaking their strategies. They'll be looking at their marketing, changing their pages, looking at their emails, and all of that, if it needs to be tweaked, is fine. But it's almost like we believe that there's this magic bullet. If I get the perfect strategy, that everything's going to work out for my business. And this often leads us to asking really the wrong question, right? Because when we see somebody who hit all of the marks and is like, maybe even surpassing you in business, the question that we want to ask is, how did you do it? And for most of us, that's actually the whole wrong question, because again, it's a focus on this masculine side, this projective side, the action taking and whatever else, but it leaves out, who did you become? It leaves out, where did your identity have to change? Where did you have to stretch and grow as a person? And really, that's the bit. Any effective strategy will work when you're the person who can work it. All right, the other thing is mindset. So if you are in the business building community, there's a lot of focus on mindset. And mindset is incredibly critical. And I teach on mindset, I work with clients on mindset, but it's incomplete as a strategy. Focus on your mindset alone totally negates your intuition, your body's capacity, your emotional range, your feelings, your resistance about doing certain tasks or not doing certain tasks. And so oftentimes when we're focused on strategy and mindset, we get into this spiraling place of, let me tweak my strategy, let me change my offer, let me adjust on the strategy side, and let me dig around in my psyche. Let me go looking for problems. And there's a belief like, oh, I have a money block, I have a love block, I have a this and a that. And so oftentimes I'm talking to clients and I am just saying, there's nothing wrong with you. You're okay. But this idea that if I'm not getting where I want to get, that means I have a problem in my mindset. And I want to just point this out, because when we have too much energy in the mind, right, when our mental body is overfunded, that comes at the expense of our emotional body or our physical body. And so a lot of times our mind will be like, you could be more productive, and our body doesn't have the energy because it's all in the mind and it's spinning. All right, so that over focus on those masculine strategies. And again, this plays into the internalization of, I'm lazy, I procrastinate, I do X, Y, Z. And that's, generally speaking, from all of the women that I've worked with, very far from what's actually the truth. So the third reason where women get stuck in scaling is really around self-sabotage. And so there's a paradox when we're growing and scaling in our business, because we have this cute little soul, this little divine spark that lives within us. And that part of us wants to grow, wants to expand, wants to contribute, wants to serve people, wants to have the luxe vacations and go to the Swiss Alps and shit. And we have this other little part, this part of us, this little squishy human animal who's aging and who maybe didn't get a good night's sleep and who has to eat breakfast and lunch and dinner. And that part of us loves to stay safe, loves what's familiar, loves to not get her heart broken. Well, the bigger part of us is like, buckle up, baby, we're going for it. All right. And as you become the person who listens to your soul and grows and expands, you're going to be in that tension of, my human doesn't actually want to do this. My soul wants to do it. My human doesn't want to do it. And this is the place where, over focused on strategy and we're only dealing with our mind, this is the place where we will essentially get in our own way. And the reason is not because anything's wrong with you, but it's because you're asking yourself to do things that you don't feel safe doing. You don't either, like, your emotions, you can't handle the big feelings that come with the really big life, or your nervous system isn't on board for those things yet. And this is the place where so often I'm working with ladies and I'm just like, girl, you're tying your shoelaces together. You're actively working against the thing that you're wanting to do. And it's most of the time, it's really because when we're imbalanced in the way that we take care of ourselves, our mind is like, I want this, push it, let's go. And our body and our heart is like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. And so then we essentially have to get in our own way to stay safe. And so there's strategies to work on those things. But I want to just point that out, because people will be so devastated when they self-sabotage. And it's really like, if you look at it like self-protection, then it doesn't seem like a betrayal towards yourself. You're just like, oh, all right, there's something here that needs to stretch and grow and expand. And two, when you look at it that way, then you can really tenderly care for yourself as you grow this business. So that way you're the person who can hold it. So these three reasons, when we really look at things, these are the reasons why women get stuck. And I'm going to just also mention that masculine model of success, back to the first point, men are really socially conditioned to make a lot of money. Men are social, or to have a lot of money, to be providers. And women are really not socially conditioned to do that. And I just want to make a little note for you here. So I'm 41 years old at the time that we're recording this. And I was a little kid when women got full financial sovereignty. It wasn't until the 80s that women were allowed to even get a business loan without a man's signature. And so like my mother, my mother who raised me, who's got her programming is part of this. She was in her 20s before she was able to really get a bank account on her own. And so all of this plays into the fact that when we're growing and expanding, we're also growing and expanding into really uncharted territory altogether. And because women now have the ability to make a lot of money and to hold that big success, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we have the mental framework for that. And I just want to give acknowledgement to that because, again, there's a lot of suffering that happens when we believe that there's something wrong with us about when we get stuck, when we get in a plateau, when we're tying our shoelaces together. So let's talk about what does it actually take to grow our business to seven figures, multiple seven figures. So the first thing that it takes is actually the masculine part, is the strategy, the business model. And what I want to say here is what's so important around the business model is that the business model fits for a life, right? And again, we're not generally thinking about that. We're generally thinking, how do I make the most money? How do I make the most money the fastest? And we're not really asking ourselves, all right, well, how do I make this amount of money? But for example, I like to work a 4-hour workday and I like to take most Fridays off. So how do I get all of my work done in 16 hours and make the amount of money that I want to make? That's a very different question than how do I take this to the moon as fast as possible, right? And so oftentimes this is where the social conditioning really plays into things. So when we're looking at our business models, we want to make sure that the business model that we're building fits for the life that we want to have. And then we also, very likely, if you want to be making top dollar money in less time, and you also want to have time to do all these things, you're going to need to have a premium priced product or offer. You're going to need to be offering something of very high value, or your time is going to have to be leveraged. All right. So these are things that really factor into what does it take to make this business work. And when we think about it from the standpoint, I think what ends up happening in my meetings is we start to get really clear around, oh, if you're serving these kinds of clients, you'll have to work 100 hours to be able to make the kind of money that you want to make. Do you want to do that? If you're going to serve it at this price point, that 4-hour workday isn't going to really be possible. So we have to look in these constraints to be able to do this. And I do want to point out that for women, especially, being well-resourced, making sure that you have time to rest and time to play and time to enjoy. There's something that happens where a well-resourced woman, she's more magnetic. She's going to have an easier time doing everything. When you're burned out and you're working and you're pushing and you're grinding and you get full of resentment and bitterness, and it's a little yuck to the clients, to the customers, and things like that. So the first thing that we need is a business model that's built for the life that you want. All right, so this is going to be structure, offers, pricing. And this also requires, especially when I'm saying this to you, if you're like, oh, holy shit, man, my offers are pricing, that math's not going to math. A lot of it times that means that we're going to have to potentially change your client avatar and really get that messaging dialed in very specifically. So that's going to be on a very practical level. All right. So on the mindset piece, there's two things that we're going to say here. So it's one of the 5 points, but it's kind of two. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to construct an identity, because the identity is basically, when they talk about your comfort zone, in personal development space, it's always like life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Everything that you want is outside of your comfort zone. And so basically your comfort zone, the mental structures that make up your identity are there to keep you safe. And so when you're inside of the identity, when you're inside of how to behave, how you are, cool. When you start growing outside of that, that's the place where that self-sabotage starts to happen. And so that means we need to grow and expand that mental framework for who we believe we are, what we believe we deserve, what we have permission to have. And this often also requires a lot of reworking on the social conditioning of aspects and the way that we set expectations for ourselves and the roles that we play in our lives. And when we can increase the size of this identity gently and on purpose, then that it's almost like the fence of the comfort zone moves, and now you have more room to grow within. And you're not hopping that fence and then, because I feel like the identity is a little bit of an electric fence. It's a fence with a barbed wire. So when you're hopping over that, a lot of times you're going to have to get back in. Life is going to come smack you upside the head because you're outside of where you feel safe. So we need to expand that identity rather than just break it down, right? When we break it, that's the place where you might be able to get so far, but then you're getting sick, you're getting hurt, your clients are firing you. And if that's happened to you, I just want to say, sometimes this is part of transformation work and it's okay. All right. So that wealth identity is part of the mindset work. And it's something that's going to be a living document or a living changing. It's always going to be updating. And I guess that's it. All right. So the next thing we need to be able to do in our mindset is start to think about our mind as our tool for success. So most of the time when we think about mindset, people think about very beginner-ass mindset stuff. And what that might be is looking for your money blocks, looking for your problems, digging around in your psyche, looking for every past story that has bothered you and every little bit of fuckery and da-da-da. And listen, at a certain season, that work is really very important. And so I'm not making fun of that work. That work is critical. But once you have the skills to break a judgment, to break a belief structure, once you have the skills to let the charge out of a story, and this is what most people are doing in their beginner level mindset, is getting their mind to loosen up. Once you have the skills to observe, those are beginner level skills. All right. Then we need to start to move on to more advanced level skills. And so these are things that I like to call mental flexibility. It's learning to see a problem from multiple perspectives. It's learning to hold two different truths at the same time. It's learning to shift your perspectives. It's learning to discipline the mind. When your mind is going off down the rabbit hole of I'm never going to have enough money and everything sucks and am I even good enough to do what I want? You can redirect it. Right. And this takes discipline. And so we need these more advanced level skills to be able to really hold that big identity. So more using your imagination, a multisensory imagination. So some of us are really good with visualizing. I'm not one of them. I usually have to play with my other senses to get my imagination to cooperate. What else? I have other notes on. Well, basically, the major shift in advanced level mindset is beginner level mindset is what's wrong with me and how do I clear this block? And advanced level mindset is how do I construct the fucking life that I want? How do I get my mind to do the thing that I want it to do? How do I use my mind like a tool? All right. And so that's really where we need to be. And again, when we're so focused on mindset, almost everybody that says things to me says mindset is everything. They're only talking about beginner level shit. They can't use their mind like a tool. They can't make their mind hold 2 or 3 or 4 conflicting truths at the same time. They don't have the mental faculty to work with non-dual thinking or advanced problem solving. And listen, what I'm talking about is really advanced stuff. It's stuff for people who are going to be multimillionaires, right? Not everybody needs these skills. But if you think that you're going to get all the way to multiple 7 figures, only clearing your money blocks are wrong. It's not how it works. You have to sharpen that skill set. You have to sharpen that mental tool that you have. So, all right. So that's the second in the well, two and 2.1, I guess. So you need the wealth identity. So that way you can start to become the person who can hold this. And then 2 is you need to start using your mind the way that the mind is meant to be used and not just looking at it as a problem to be solved. All right. So the third thing that we need to do to be able to really hold a life of abundance is emotional range. Now, when I'm talking about emotional range, I'm talking about our ability to be with high sensation in the body. Now, most of us do not have a very big emotional range. And this really stems from childhood. Most of us were not raised by people that taught us how to hold big emotions. So if let's just say you were crying and somebody gave you a popsicle to cheer you up, or you were mad and somebody sent you to your room, or you were, I don't know, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about vibes. What ends up happening is we learn that certain emotional states are not safe to have. All right. Now, what ends up happening, if that's the case, is there's a tremendous fear of sensation that comes up. And this fear of sensation, I want to point out, is not a fucking mindset issue. It's not a mindset issue because people will say things like, oh, if I could just figure out what's going on in my mind, then I could handle my fear of rejection. No, that's not true. It's the wrong place to be solving that problem. What we need to do is we need to learn how to care for those emotions. We need to learn how to alchemize those emotions. And when we don't have a big enough emotional range, really what ends up happening is every time we have to take actions that put us at risk for potentially putting feelings that we think are dangerous when we would have to take an action, we're going to get in our own way because it's not safe, because we don't know how to be with those emotions. So I'm going to give you a little example here. So I was working with a woman who had been building her social presence for years, right? She's been working on Instagram, working on social media. She's got a podcast. And she had a reel go viral. And all of a sudden, her Instagram audience quadrupled in just a day. So now she's got more than 100,000 people seeing into her living room. And she freaked out. She freaked out so hard because she couldn't handle actually that level of visibility. So what did she do? She called me when she stopped showing up online. She told everybody that she was taking a social media break. She stopped doing everything for a few months. So look at, she had the opportunity, this huge money-making way to serve people, and she couldn't hold it yet. All right. And so this is what I'm talking about. Now, that was not a mindset issue. It was that she couldn't handle the possibilities that these strangers weren't going to love her. She couldn't handle the possibility that she would be rejected or criticized or that people were from the wrong side of the internet. Because you've ever had a video go a little bit too far that people stop being so nice. When you're in your own corner, your own hometown of the internet, everybody loves you. But you get a video that goes all the way to the other side of the internet. And so we had to work on her emotional range for her to be able to hold that. And when we did, she's got a book deal. She's been on national TV. She's quite famous. But part of that was stretching that capacity and that emotional aspect. All right. And so anytime that you're feeling resistance around doing something, and it's really a fear of sensation. So it's like, oh, I'm afraid to be criticized. I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm afraid to be judged. I'm afraid to outgrow my social circle. I'm afraid of X, Y, Z. Chances are it's really a problem that will be solved in the emotional body and not the mental body. And I want to just point this out because if you go digging around in your mindset for the solution to that problem, you will hire coaches and might be able to pinpoint a story and talk to you about that and literally not give you a solution because you're looking in the wrong place for the solution. You're looking in the mind for a solution that's going to be in the body. All right. And this shit gets wildly expensive at scale because good coaches, you're working multiple seven figures. The coaching isn't cheap at this. You're not able to just get away with a $70, so what's extra cool about emotional range is that once you understand this and you know how to clear an emotion and you know how to alchemize an emotion and you know how to read a vibration in your body, your intuition will skyrocket. You'll be able to really hear your own inner guidance. You'll be able to read a vibe. You'll be able to pick things up off of people and off of yourself. And the speed at which you can move through things is incredible. And then the last thing I'll say about like the benefits of really growing and expanding your emotional range, once you got you, and if you had to handle a disappointment or a rejection or a big public failure, and you know that you've got you, you're basically unstoppable because any of the fear of sensation, that's becomes irrelevant. Like, right, I'm going to send my pitch to this and it could work and I could be on stage or it couldn't work and I'm going to be okay either way. Let me send that pitch out. Like much the procrastination, the resistance, the delays comes around emotional range. So once you're not afraid of your own feelings, the amount of power that you have to get things done is wild. So there's a huge benefit in doing that emotional range work. All right. Now, the next thing that's invisible that is really, really important when it comes to scaling your business is going to be around the energetic piece of it. And this is more of a spiritual skill set. The reason that this is so important when it comes to scaling your business is because oftentimes when this piece is missing, you'll take the actions and not get the result, and you'll wonder why. You'll be like, I used the Zig Ziglar formula and it's not working. You'll keep looking for strategy after strategy when really what's going on might be you're showing up to make money and not showing up to serve. And then your buyers get repelled by that. All right. So when it comes to scaling our business, there's a lot of energetic components that go into being able to really hold and scale a business. And some of this is going to be like our balance of the masculine and feminine, right? It's going to be how much projective energy I put into something, how much receptive energy I put into it, how do I lean back, right? And what I want to say here is that most manifestation teachers are wonderful, and they do us a big disservice because they don't actually give us the skills on how to actually do these things. They'll say things like, hold the vibration of this, or like, just, this place in your mind and change your state. And they don't really give you the practices on how to do it. And what I find is a lot of times people are coming to see me, and it's almost like the energetic work is a bit of, the instructions are simple. It's almost like going to the gym, right? So let's just say, wants to hold a vibe for an extended period of time, or wants to upgrade her standards or hold new standards or have certain like powers. And I say, all right, well, that's how you do it. Like, I'm going to tell you how to do a squat, but telling you how to do a squat is not the same thing as watching you squat 500 pounds. A lot of times people want these energetic skill set, but they don't have any practical way on how to do it. And they're trying to do things that require a lot of energetic muscle before they have the energetic muscle to do it. And then they're like, I'm bad at manifesting. Something's wrong with me. And I'm like, nothing's wrong with you. You're trying to do super advanced level shit that's way over your head because you have no foundational practices. And, they're wondering why their manifestations are sloppy, or why their manifestations were, their magic is weak. And so learning energetic management, I think some of it is very practical, and it's just going to be about how your day flows. Structure your days around your energy levels, right? Like, and I'll just give you an example. So for me, I'm a morning person. My energy dips to levels of no productivity right around like 2 o'clock up until probably like 5. And then I get another little second wind I could get something done. So if I was to put my most big important things right in the middle of the day, I'm not going to be showing up at my best. Right. And so on a very practical level, energy management is things just like that. And then there's more on a subtle level, like feminine, and how to use polarity, how to show up in a way that's magnetic versus, right? Like how to use your attention and your energy, more or less like the universe, do your bidding. And when I'm working with clients, a lot of these things I've done many years of study. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn how to do these things and how to build those energetic muscles. And so when I'm working with clients, a lot of times we have the small practices we can get to the how to, right? We can do that. And it's tricky to teach because there's all invisible, and the only ways to know if you got results are if your external world changes. And so this kind of work is a little bit tricky, but so many people are out there trying to do the manifestation aspects of things, but they don't actually have the energetic skill set, and they're learning from teachers that are teaching at a really advanced level, and their stuff doesn't work, and they're like, oh, why, the whole thing is frustrating. All right. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about, you need to be able to really grow and expand into that business is going to be a body-based capacity. All right. So we have to remember that our body is coming on this journey. Our body is coming. It isn't just a mental journey. This is, our body has to do the work. Our body has to sit in the chair. Our body has to type the email. You ask yourself to go without lunch. It's your body that's hungry while you're finishing your work. So oftentimes we're asking ourselves to do things that make us feel physically unsafe. And I want to point out here too, that the way that women's brains work is we're very socially connected. And so things like outgrowing your social network, making much more money than your family or your friends, those things can feel on a body level actually physically dangerous, even though there's no physical danger. But the fact that you might be without a tribe, or the fact that your social circle might not like you the same way, or people might think that you're better than them, those things can be so upsetting to the body. And listen, I want you just to recognize that your body is significantly more powerful than your mind. Like your mind's so adorable, she thinks she's in charge. If your body does not want to go to that business meeting in Tampa, you're getting COVID the day before that flight happens. You're falling down the stairs. Like you're like, I'm not doing that. She thinks we're going rolling. Watch me get food poisoning. I'm gonna eat that bad oyster right now. What we really have to do here to be able to grow and expand is start to pay attention to our body. It's our body level attunement. And for some about this are very, some things are leave multiple times a day, drink water, touch the grass, pee when you have to pee, something beautiful today, right? Because what ends up happening, let's just think about this for a second. So you have this little human animal, right? This little squishy human animal. And the way that your brain communicates to the inside the body is via neurochemical cocktail. And your body knows what she's doing. She knows if she's been sitting still for many hours, right? So people are like, I want to be thriving. I'm like, can't get to thriving by surviving. So when you've been sitting still, laser focused on your computer for many hours without getting up, your body basically thinks that she's like, like war movies, like the pet sits with the rifle for hours and hours. Like your body might as well be doing that. She feels like she's in danger. She feels super high stakes. She's not going to be open and receptive to thriving. Now, where this plays into other things is like that your your cortex is going to be a little tight. What that means is you're not going to be able to perceive the big opportunities, and you've ever like really well day and then like, grinding away, you're grinding. At the end of the day, you're not necessarily happy. You feel like you're thriving. And so we have to teach our body how to thrive. And this starts with really simple stuff, like all of the things I just said: eating, drinking, going to the bathroom, going outside, taking a walk, dancing, singing, letting your body know that she's safe. And so actually, in the Limitless Wealth Mastermind, we have a whole extra coach on there that just specifically works on this. Because also sometimes we have to give ourselves certain exercises to make ourselves feel safe. Keeps memory of things that feel dangerous. And so sometimes we have to retrain our body to know, oh, this one time this thing happened and this reminds me of this time that I felt unsafe. But now I'm a whole ass grown up and everything's okay. Right? But we have to retrain the body to be able to do that. And what I find also is that the more body attunement, the more regulation I've had with my body and my nervous system, the more the end work comes easy, the more that my mind opens up, the more that my mind can much more thriving thoughts. Right? Because we have to remember that our brain is in this body and these neurochemical cocktails. There's one way, right? Like, because like a little different than the mind when I'm talking about like the way mind works. But, the way that these neurochemical cocktails come in, sometimes the brain like closes down to new opportunities, closes down to perception, has this like little level focus, and us learning how to work with the body. And I'm going to say this again, because this also plays into the emotional range. When we're going to speak on stages, or you're going to turn up your ad spend, or you're going to do something that feels risky, a lot of times your body's going to be a little on edge, especially anything around money also plays into our survival. We're worried that I'm going to turn up my ad spend, and if this doesn't go well, I could lose everything. I could lose my house. I could not buy groceries. The mind and the cocktail of scarcity is just threat of starvation. So so every time your mind is like, I'm not going to have enough money, your body picks that up of like, dude, the risk of starvation. Right. So where I'm going with this is when we want this really big business structure and we want to hold millions or multiple millions of dollars, right? We have to build that structure in a way, but also we have to ourselves in a way where that makes sense. Because what ends up happening when the success is bigger than what we can hold is we drop it, right? You'll hear about this, like Had too much success too fast, like a one hit wonder. They weren't all the way ready for that level of success and they couldn't grow into it fast enough. So what happens? They'd stop. They couldn't do it. They couldn't handle it. They dropped it. Right? Lottery winners. They get this whole big pot of money. It's more than they can handle. And what happens? They drop it, bankrupt a little bit later. And even sometimes we'll see it in business, like especially if you've been in mastermind groups, sometimes we'll see somebody skyrocket right out the gate. And sometimes she can grow into it, but sometimes she can't and she drops it. And so this is where that work of who did you have to become comes in. Because for women, this work is much more important than the entire conversation would lead to, because men are already conditioned for this and have the conditioning for it. And men's emotions hit a little different, and men are more wired for acquisition something than they are for the social being, right? And so women are wired in a way where that success is ours to have. We can have it, but we just can't go about it, the Hill framework for success, or, like success books. Like it's just not going to be enough, right? We have to get, and also like women have really cool magical powers, like are that emotion, all of these things. If these are tools and information gathering for us to have, and just because like things like logic, you mind and don't use your emotions, logic and reason over emotions, doesn't necessarily make that 100% true. So, all right, I'll just wrap these up in a nice little bow. So when it comes to the growth and expansion, we do need all of those structural things. We need the business model. We're going to need the perfect clients. We're going to need the right sales pages and the messaging and all of that. And I want to point out, like, you have the best emotional range ever, but if you don't have a buy button, you're not going to make the money, right? Like they go together, right? When it comes to the mindset, we have to use our mind to expand our identity, and we're going to use our mind to learn these new skills. All right. And we want to be using our mind to create, not just our mind to be like, well, let me go digging for what's wrong with me. All right. That's the power move. That's the visualization, the multiple perspectives, the non-dual thinking, the perspective shifting, the time manipulation. Those are the skills that you want to have to be able to create 7 or multi-7 figures. All right. Then we're going to grow the emotional range, so that way we can handle it. So that way when we're in a high sensation experience, we're not freaking out. We're not afraid of our own feelings. And then we can start to work with the more subtle energies, the management, the manifestation, getting the universe to do your bidding, the magical aspects of these things. And also have to learn how to use our body as a tool, read our body signals, learn to stretch our capacity. And basically, like, self is almost always rooted in some flavor of self-betrayal, right? It's like willing to betray yourself, you're going to get in your own way. And so when we have our attention, when our mind can be in our heart and our mind can be in the body, then there's no need to self-betray, because you could just tenderly, like, lovingly take care of yourself and grow into it. And this stuff may seem like it's faster, like, oh, I just push through, but it's not. When somebody just pushes through, the fucking dishwasher breaks. When they just push through, like, they're fire them. Something falls through because their roots aren't deep enough to hold the success that they think they want. All right. Okay, so this is my presentation. So again, at the point, I'll just remind you. So if you wanted to work with me, if this is like, oh, holy shit, I'm understanding why I've been stuck, why I've been in my own way, why I've been tying my shoelaces together. I don't have the emotional range. I don't have, the attunement. So book a call with me, because then we can look and see where your business is, where it wants to go, what you're working on, and then we can start to map out where your mindset is. And if your mindset needs work, or if your mindset's great, we can start to look at that emotional range, start to see where the fear of sensation is costing you and what needs to happen, expand that. If energy's, if showing up and energetically you're off or weird, then we can be in that of yourself, working on it there. And the same thing for that body-based capacity. If your body's usually the one that's like terrified or freaking out, place to increase the capacity. So, all right. So if you decide that you will work with me, what we'll do is we'll put, 75 minutes on our calendars. We'll work together through all of this, and working together, plan, you'll get all of your actions. And if working together beyond that makes sense, then we can talk about that at that point in time. All right, everybody. I love you so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. Appreciate you. Bye.